Okay, so now I'm going over the Trig Star, a couple of Trig Star problems. I'm going to teach you how to use your calculator to store everything in so that you don't have to worry about manipulating the numbers, typing them in wrong, typing things in degrees, minutes, or seconds, or whatever. So the first thing I would do on this first problem, because it's just a regular old trig problem, and maybe for this one you would just use your calculator and not store things in, but we're going to use this as our example. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of ignore those. I have to remember what they are, but I'm going to reuse those letters in my graphing calculator as I go. And this is 592.25. I'm going to set it equal to a capital A. And the reason I'm saying capital A is I will just be going through the alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And then this is 783.15. I'm going to call that capital B. And the way that I'm going to do that is on my calculator, I'm going to just type in 592.25. And I'm going to push the store button. Yep, that's why I'm going to grab a calculator just so I can follow along. I would press the store button, which is kind of under LN. And then does it give you a little arrow, right? Little arrow, and then you're going to push the alpha key, which on this particular calculator is green, and then the math key, because can you see in green it's an A. So then I'm going to go alpha A. And did you get that to work? I mean, and then enter, I guess, right? Okay, so I am going to pause. Now, then we're just going to type in our calculator 783.15, and then that's store, and then alpha B. So now we don't really have to use those at all as we go through things. We're just going to use the fact that it's in our calculator as capital A and capital B. The first thing it asks is for this angle ACB, which is that angle right there. So I'm just going to remember this is the hypotenuse, this is the adjacent. What trig function am I going to use then? Cosine, and I'm actually going to call that angle D. And so it's a little confusing because I've got A, B, C on the picture, but I'm ignoring those. So that angle is going to be angle D, and I'm just going to write a little arithmetic thing or trig thing that says cosine capital D equals capital A over capital B. Do you agree? And then I'm going to say D equals inverse cosine of capital A divided by capital B. And then on my calculator, I'm going to go second cosine alpha A divided by alpha B. Oh, darn. What did I forget to make sure? No. Well, just do that. Enter. Yes, enter. And I forgot the cardinal rule is put the calculator in degrees. So just check that it's in degrees. If it's in degrees, it gave you a good answer. If it's not, then just change it back to degrees. And then if you go second enter, you can just, get it. And is it 40 point something? Okay, so now you've got that decimal number, right? In this one, that is the answer. We don't have to store it, but let's store it anyway. Then just go, so once you have that as 40 point whatever, then go store alpha D. It is D, alpha D. And I'm even going to write a little D there. Now, oh, I didn't use C. I skipped C, but I should have used it, but I didn't. Oh, I think I found this distance first is why. I'll make that C. So now it says distances to the nearest hundredth, angles in degrees, minutes, and seconds to the nearest second. Now, clear your home screen and just go alpha D, enter, and you've got your decimal there, correct? And then on the calculator, if you're using this version, there's an apps key that in blue on mine says angle. Do you see that? And so once I go, and I'll just write below here. So I've got my D, enter, and I've got my 40 point, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm going to go, oops, clear. Oh, mine turned off, or I turned it off. And then I'm going to go second angle. And then do you see what number 4 is? Yep, second angle, number 4, degrees, minutes, second, and then enter. And then does it give you that answer in degrees, minutes, and seconds? So what is it in degrees, minutes, and seconds? 40 degrees, 51 minutes, and 58 seconds. Is that what it gave you? Yes, yep, yeah. So to the nearest degrees, minutes, and seconds. And so now, really, did I have to store that D1? No, but on other problems, I'll always be using my answers. So every time you get an answer, just store it in there. And then if I have to recall it later, it's in there as a decimal, but I can do that conversion, right, to degrees, minutes, and seconds. And so then when I did this, I guess I did this distance next. I called this side capital C. And if that's a right triangle, how do I get capital C? B squared minus a squared, and the what of that? Square root. And so to get that, I'm just going to, on my calculator, when it's a clear screen or whatever, I'm just going to pick the square root key, alpha b squared minus alpha a squared, and maybe close the parenthesis if it gave you a parenthesis, or arrow out if it's that version. I kind of forget sometimes. And then enter, and it should give you that distance. And then that one, since you were just rounding to the nearest hundredth, that's what we're going to do. What is it? 4, 1. Okay. Does that make sense? Okay, and so now today we'll go over this other one as well, and we're gonna put things in. For this one, and I'm gonna tell you I did this one differently than on page 2. On this one I just put these in as A, B, and C, but later I'm going to just put them in as I use them. So take a minute, and I usually kind of write them on here too. 343.12 is going to be my capital A. This is going to be the 119. It's this big angle here, 119 degrees, 47 minutes, 45 seconds. That's going to be B, is going to be that angle. And this other angle, FEG, which is down over here, this is going to be 39 degrees, 13 minutes, and 50 seconds. And that's going to be capital C, is that angle. Now, you'll decide what you're going to do, but let's just store these in one at a time, and just store in A right now. So you know what? You're just overwriting. And so that's the deal where, at first I hadn't used C, it doesn't matter. Just, whatever you use, as long as you're writing them on here, even if right now we have D in there as something, as long as we don't use it before we restore it, we're good to go. So then just do 343.12, store as alpha A. And then I want to talk about these angles. So for the angle, the way you're going to store an angle is on the home screen, you're going to go 119 plus 47 divided by 60 plus 45 divided by what? 3,600. And if you want to do that and then press enter, you know what I mean, just to make sure you typed it in right and it looks good. I'm taking this 119 degrees, 47 minutes, 47 over 60, 45 seconds, 45 over 360, enter, and then store as alpha B. Alpha B. And so you do that one time, but then you never have to do, then you don't care. Think about if you didn't store that in. Every time you want to use that angle, you'd have to either convert it or whatever, right? And if you convert it and round it, then these answers aren't going to be right. Does that make sense? Because nothing is rounded to the very end. So then do the same thing. 39 plus 13 divided by 60 plus 50 divided by 3,600. If you want to press enter, you can. And then store as alpha C. I didn't write C there on this part. So all that did is just got our stuff in there. And now we're going to kind of figure things out as we go. So, and let me state this because I don't know if I was recording at that moment. Anything that you write on these old contest problems, you can consider your notes and you can take these with you and have them there with you to kind of help you. So does that make sense too, how that's desirable, because then you'll have a bunch of this kind of written out and you won't have to kind of mull it over as much. So angle EGF is this angle over here, and those three just add to 180, right? And so the only thing I have to do, and not on these problems, it's not that bad, but sometimes I write a running list of the alphabet. Do you know what I mean? And like cross them out so I know what the next letter of the alphabet is. Maybe that's only me because I'm not that strong in the alphabet. Because when I alphabetize things, I still like go through the alphabet. But whatever. So I'll call that D. And so how are we going to find D? Just 180 minus, and I would do it this way, minus 180 minus B minus C, right? And then equals, enter, and then store as D. Yep. And yeah, actually, I forgot that we have to go to degrees, minutes, and second. So if you already started as D, then just go D, enter, and then how do you get it into degrees, minutes, and seconds? So D, enter to get it back on the screen because I told you to store it. Second, angle, and I always have to kind of look too, and then number 4, right? And then enter. So what is it? It's 20 degrees. What is next? 58 minutes. And round that to the nearest second. What was it? 25 seconds. It doesn't matter because it keeps it as a decimal. So anytime you bring it out, it's as a decimal as we look at it. So, and some of these storing things I'm kind of erasing just so that they don't take up all my space. Then next I want to find EH. And so EH is right there. And what letter am I on the alphabet? Capital E, right? And so now for this one, I would use, I've got the hypotenuse right there, and this is the adjacent side, and I've got that angle. So what am I using? Cosine, right? So cosine of capital C equals E over A. Do you agree with that? Because I am asking because sometimes I do make mistakes. Do you agree? And so then I want to get E alone. So E is A cosine C. So you're going to do alpha A cosine alpha C, close the parenthesis, enter, and then just round it to 2 decimal places. What is it? 265.78. And then don't forget, after you write it down, then store it as alpha E, so that it's in there. So if I need to use that length anymore, I just know, I just have to do E. I don't care what it is. Then it asks us to find FH. So FH is this side of that one. And on this case, in this case, and I have to be careful here because B is that angle, the big angle. And what am I, A, B, C, D, E, F. I'm going to call that F. And do I have all 3 sides? I can use the Pythagorean theorem, or I can use some version of trig. How do you want me to do it? Pythagorean theorem. So F equals the square root of what squared? A squared minus E squared. And so do square root alpha A squared minus alpha E squared, enter. And then we want to write it down. So this one's tricky. Did you get it? Can I look at it on somebody's? Yes. So you have to round everything to the nearest hundredth. What is that? Yep, 217.00. And then don't forget to do what? Store as alpha F. Store as alpha F. Now the next thing we need is segment FG, which is this big one here, this big long one. I'll use a different color. I'm going to use yellow. I know it'll be hard to see, but that's all right. And alphabetically, where am I? G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And I didn't write these in. Maybe I will. That one was D, O, E, F, and this one's going to be G, so I'll write that so I don't forget. So now I need that side of this triangle, and for that, I'm going to do, I have angle D, right? And I have this length. So actually, I'm looking at this triangle. I'll use a different color. I'm looking at this triangle now. I have angle D, and I have this side F, and I want to find G. Do you agree? Okay, so I'm going to get rid of some of that scribbling that I just did there. And so what trig function am I using? The sine of D equals F over G. So I want to find G, and so I'm going to just switch them. G equals F divided by sine D. And so then to figure it out, I'm just going alpha F divided by sine alpha D, enter. And I just want that to the nearest hundredth. What is it? 606.2. Is it 6? I have 5 there. Well, no, I did one of these a little bit different. So, okay, let me check the answer. Oh, I am wrong. It is a 6. Okay, because I was like, I thought I checked the answer. I must not have checked the answer. And then I need GH, right? And so I'm not even going to have to name it anything because it's my last calculation. How am I going to get this? But I'll call it EFGH. I'll call it H. And You could use the Pythagorean theorem. H is the square root of g squared minus what? F squared. Do you agree? And then what is that? Okay, so I need you to do this. If you got an error message, and this is the only bad thing about this, is if something, goes a little haywire. So go alpha G enter. And is it 606.25 or 0.26? Oh, you didn't save it, maybe. Yep, okay, so if you get an error message, do that. Whatever letters you were using, um, then just go alpha that letter and make sure it's the number you think it is. Do you know what I mean by that? And because this time it's giving you an error, but if you're later in the test and you've saved it one time, it's going to like use the letter from a different problem or something if you didn't store it. Does that make sense? Now, that's all I'm going over today with you. Tomorrow, I'll give you another packet. I just want to point out something about this one. Do you agree this is not, well, they are right triangles, but we can't use right triangle trig on it because all I know is this big angle here, which if it's a quadrilateral, so these add up to 360. So I know this is 90, 90, and that one, and I can find this big angle by taking 360 minus those, right? But I can't. I only have this one side of this one, and I don't know either of these angles, and I have this one side of this one, and I don't know either of these angles. So I have to use the law of sines and the law of cosines, and I'm going to tell you right now, the way this problem is always designed is they're going to give you a diagonal look. And don't draw this in now, but our first job is actually going to be to draw in the opposite diagonal because, do you agree we just said we'll know that angle, right? And then we'll know this side and we'll know this side. And we can't use the law of sines because we don't have an opposite pair, but we'll be able to use the law of cosines. So we'll wait until we've done those to come back and go over those. So that's everything that I wanted to go over today and just introduce you to this storing on a calculator.